Hey, just wanted to jump on today. Quick video to talk about questions you should be asking when it comes to planning out your content. I've done a few videos now on sort of keyword research and content planning in general, but I think just this quick one on when you're at those initial content planning stages for your site, what are those questions that you should be asking to make sure that you're just getting the absolute most out of your content budget. So 3 questions, be a really quick video. Let's just jump into it. So first one, is this content going to actually be useful for users when they're on the site? So what I mean by that is that in terms of navigation and what are those opportunities for users who maybe they're coming in through branded searches initially. So let's say you're working with a larger site or you are a recognized brand. You can start to get that traffic in through those pages where maybe the volume itself isn't very high, or they could just take a while to actually get to where they need to because there's still lots of competition regardless. Or there might just be no volume at all, but it makes a lot of sense for users to navigate as they're sort of looking around the site initially. This is a really nice example of that, where you've got ways to categorize different recipe types. So I thought this was really interesting because actually when you look at the overall traffic and volume, there's basically nothing in Ahrefs. Now, I know this isn't gospel. The reality in GA and Search Console might be much different. But I just thought, like, in terms of the usefulness for anyone who's on the site to go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to jump to it by course, or I'm going to jump to recipes by season. It's a really nice way of having that mega menu structure, and you're still driving people to the same types of content. It's just a nice way to have that laid out. So I think when it comes to that content planning side, certainly if you're looking at revamping things on the top level, maybe don't just worry about that volume side. There's always estimated volumes, which can be very conservative anyway, and I've got a few more examples of that later in the video. But I just think this is a great example of how you can almost get more bang for your buck from the content that is linked to from within these top level pages. So sort of seeing these as initial landing pages, but not necessarily just worrying about things from an SEO side. It's much more about what is logical for users to be navigating to when they're on the site, and what do those opportunities look like outside of that initial SEO data that might come from keyword research. So regardless of volume, is this something that would actually drive relevant traffic to your site? This is a really big one, especially if you're starting with sort of top level seed keywords. So let's say we put something like SEO into Ahrefs, filter by volume 10 to 50. And you can see they start to get quite specific quite quickly. So an example here where I've just done advanced technical SEO audit, something like that you might have as a subcategory of a technical SEO audit page. But then we take a look at the search results. It's largely more articles and things like that. But just remember that this initial estimate was 50 searches per month. Then we put the SEMrush article in, and they're getting over 7,000 in traffic, and there's quite a lot of keywords that's coming in through that as well. So I think when you're doing that initial research, again, not necessarily worrying about the volume side, because this is just the volume for one keyword. It's not taking into account that entire cluster. So absolutely don't be put off if something makes sense to be going onto the site, especially if you know it's something that's going to be useful for users, or it's something they're searching regardless. You'd rather have less traffic that makes sense coming to the site than a really nice looking graph, but it's either driving the wrong traffic and causes you more headaches, or it's just completely irrelevant traffic altogether. So I think when it comes to looking at those lower volume keywords, that you then do that extra step, you look at what's being favored in the search results, and then look at those broader clustering opportunities to realize, yeah, actually, even if it was just this one, still makes sense for us. But in reality, there's all these clusters that are ranking as well for that overarching keyword, or all these different variants. So it definitely still makes sense to be going onto the site. But actually, if it's low volume, it's still logical. So I would start there rather than just worrying about volume first. Worry about context and relevance, especially if it's something that your sort of target audience are already searching for, or the type of thing that they're going to want to search to find your site, find what you're offering. And then the final one is this relevance, the topical authority that we're trying to build. I think it's really easy to sort of look at those larger volume keywords, or maybe just get a little bit too excited and go down all these different avenues of content exploration. But again, we'll go back to that relevance side of things of, is this a topic first that we have covered in sort of its entirety, but then B, you know, is anything that we are producing still relevant to the types of things that, yes, not only that would be logical for you to be writing about, but when search engine bots are crawling the site, when users are landing on the site, is it something that's way outside of the niche? So I've been working with a client recently where they've got hit quite heavily by recent updates, and it wasn't even necessarily AI content at scale. It was sort of, you know, decent content that was coming in at scale, but it was just so far outside of their topical authority that they'd send in all sorts of conflicting signals. So I guess save that risk and focus on relevance. And you don't want to just be writing content or building pages for the sake of bringing traffic in that just makes no sense. So even if there is a sort of steady ship organically and you don't see any sort of negative effects from going way outside of that topical authority, it still might just be the wrong traffic that's coming in. So one of the ways that I really like to look at this is take a look at what you're already ranking really well for in Search Console, and then you can use this sheet. So this one I spoke about before. If you sign up to my newsletter, you get a link to this free hub, and this is the last sheet in that hub. But this is just a great example of like putting a commercial page in there. We can start to look at more informational content opportunities. So this one here, for example, how to outreach for backlinks, might be some sort of variant that we can build an article out there. This sheet just applies a sort of filtered score. So how close is it to the page that's actually getting traffic? So in this instance, this could be an exercise where I'm going, okay, I'm going to build a section on all of my category pages, and I want to house super relevant informational content that stems off the back of it. So if anyone's got any sort of logical questions, or if the content that I'm already going to write makes sense to link to from this category page, I can house it within there rather than it just being lost in a sort of blog or a news feed. So this is just like my freelance link building sort of service page. Then these are queries that are stemming off the back of it over the last couple of months. So a lot of them are commercial, but you can obviously filter by things like how, who, what, where, why type keywords, or just work your way down the filter. So don't, like, you know, if you're looking at these opportunities in something like Ahrefs or SEMrush, there might be very little volume that's coming out of it, but actually from a topical authority side, this makes so much sense for what we're trying to actually target. So having this filter and just putting a value on those opportunities just makes it so much easier to, I guess, prioritize those opportunities, and you can just link it back to data that's already coming in through commercial pages that you know are already working. So it's just a nice way of thinking about content opportunities outside of these third-party tools, because, you know, they are really handy, but they're never going to get things right from a volume side. Whilst, you know, you're not getting volume data from Search Console, but you can at least start to look at, are we getting any impressions for a certain cluster or a very specific query, or where do we sort of sit in terms of the average position? And then again, how close is that to the type of content that we're already building out? Yeah, so I hope this was helpful. Like I say, it was just a really quick video on the questions to be asking when building out your content plan. Definitely got more of these videos planned. So if you like this, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.